Okay, so I'm gonna make a bioluminescent jack-o'-lantern. I do these every year for the kids, so I figured I'd show you guys how. Pretty straightforward. It's a just a jack-o'-lantern saturated in bioluminescent bacteria. So works really well. It's a cool effect, and it's interesting that your jack-o'-lantern glows for no apparent reason. So first thing, I poured an amp plate. So this is just ampicillin LB agar. There's like a million descriptions on how to do that. So here's my freezer stock. I warmed it up a little bit while this plate was setting. Sort of wake those guys up. They've been in the freezer for a while. So just going to put 25 microliters my freezer stock on the plate. This is kind of an old stock. Normally I wouldn't plate quite this much. Normally I just dip the loop in my stock and then just smear that around. But sometimes if you use older stocks, the number of healthy bacteria that's still got their plasma is real low. So I'm just going to use the loop to smear them around. And all I'm going to want tomorrow is one good colony, so nothing too special. Alright, take this back up tomorrow. Okay, so it's the next day. I've got my culture on the dish, grew really well. So I got plenty. They're glowing, you can't really see it. I'll take a time-lapse image, because right now if I do this, you probably don't see anything, but maybe. But so I'm going to take this and I'm going to make a large flask of LB, put it in the incubator, shake it for 4 hours, and then we're going to spray it on our pumpkin. I'll show you how. Okay, so I boiled this in the microwave and then I cooled it down. It's 150 mils of LB. I'm about to add ampicillin. See, I didn't bother autoclaving because I really don't care if I get a slight bit of contamination with this one, because I'm just going to be spraying it on a pumpkin. I'm not really doing science here, but boiling's okay for most applications, really. And I'm adding ampicillin anyway, so it's not going to be a whole lot of bacterial growth. Fungus is an issue, but in 4 hours you're not going to have fungal growth. Fungi grow much slower than bacteria. E. coli, in the right environment, they're doubling times every 20 minutes. So that's really, really fast. Okay, now I'm going to add this. Okay, let me make a little space here. So I'm going to use a lot of bacteria because I want them to grow quickly. I want to grow a lot of them. And I don't want them to have a lot of generations, because E. coli, especially in ampicillin cultures with ampicillin-resistant plasmids, have a tendency to drop their plasmid over time because they produce an enzyme, and that enzyme breaks down the ampicillin. Rather than just getting the ampicillin out of their bodies or something like that, they actively destroy it. And so the amount of ampicillin in the solution will be going down and down and down over time as I add these bacteria. So if I put one very small amount of bacteria, the amount of the number, each generation has a chance of losing the plasmid. As I do that, the ones without the plasmid grow like 30% faster. So eventually the ones without the plasmid outcompete the ones with the plasmid. And so you end up with a whole culture that doesn't glow. So what I want to do is get as many brightly glowing colonies as I can. so that I can have a lot of bacteria in a short time with very few generations passing. So, let's see. Generally when you grow it and it makes a big patch like this, you want to try and focus on the edges, because the edges are more likely to be exposed to the ampicillin. The center, they've destroyed all the ampicillin in there. You probably have a good bit of growth of non-plasmid bearing, so you don't want to start with that. So I'm just going to scrape some of these guys off the edges here, especially in places where you get colonies. Okay. Pretty good bit to start with. And I'll put this in the incubator. I'm going to shake it for 4 hours. After 4 hours, I'll pull it. Hopefully I'll have a pretty good growth of bacteria. If not, I will, I might stick it in there for a little bit longer, but I want it to show, I want it to be visible. I want to be able to see sort of clouds in the culture, but I don't want it to be saturated. I don't want it to be dense. I'm going to load this in the incubator, and I'll be back in 4 hours. Okay, so it's been 4 hours. I've got a good dense culture. It's a little denser than I really wanted it to be, but okay, they grew really well. It's not glowing yet, but I just took it out of the incubator, so it's still a little too hot. Once the incubator is, or once the culture cools down to room temperature, and then I give it a little time to make a little protein, then they'll start glowing. So in the meantime, we carved the pumpkins. Me and Sebastian carved this one. I think it's gonna look pretty cool. And then Seffi carved this one. She named it Gerald. Let's see. So I think this one will be good because it's got really big eyes, so you should be able to see it. But the next step is, because the culture is pretty runny, and the sort of meat inside the pumpkin is not especially porous. I like to punch a little bunch of holes in the back of it, sort of across from the face. That way the culture can soak in to all the little holes and then sort of permeate out from there, and you get a much brighter background. So I just sort of stab it a bunch of times with a fork, and if you stab straight in, it's okay, but if you stab at kind of an angle, you get more sort of exposure over the surface area. So that's what I normally do, is stab 1,000 times in this thing. The dogs are not happy with something.
Probably some type of squirrel.
Could be a squirrel.
Or a raccoon. Or a possum.
It's more... raccoons come out at night, but possums definitely on the list of possibilities.
It's higher on the list. Can I see holes?
Yeah, give me just a second. Okay, so you can see it's pretty thoroughly stabbed here, and I like to put some in the lid as well. The more you can sort of maximize that surface exposure, the brighter it will be, because most of this stuff is not gonna just soak right into the meat of the pumpkin, so you have to give it somewhere to go. And that said, this pumpkin's gonna rot fast because you are spraying it in bacteria, but you get a couple of cool days out of it. Sebastian wants me to tell everybody that this jack-o'-lantern is named Longtooth. Okay, so that one's all stabbed up. Now we're going to put this in here and spray it down, but I'm going to wait just a minute because I want to get a good picture of this stuff glowing. So I'm going to let it start glowing before I do that. Okay, so actually it's like 1 a.m. and I have to go to work in the morning, so I'm not gonna wait for this to start glowing. It might take an hour, so. All right. Normally I use a spray bottle, but I couldn't find a good spray bottle, so I'm just gonna use this guy. Smells like E. coli. It's a fairly thin culture. You know, it's not super thin. It's not super dense. It's a little denser than I meant for it to be, but it might be fine. I wanted them to still have plenty to eat, plenty of unconsumed LB, and plenty of active ampicillin. So this part, I found it's best if you lay it on its back. So if you breathe loud sometimes when you're trying to be quiet. So, okay, if you lay it on its back, then it'll pool on the back, which is right across from the face, which is what you see. So, and it won't just glow in the holes. It'll diffuse into the whole flesh of the pumpkin over time. Because the E. coli are perfectly happy to eat pumpkin. And there's reasons people get E. coli contamination in their lettuce from Chipotle or whatever. Trying to get it on your hands. I mean, the E. coli won't hurt you if your immune system's healthy, but they smell terrible. There we go. There we go. Main thing to focus on is the bottom and the back. If you do that, it'll look good. So I'm gonna probably split this between the two and leave them on their backs to soak all this in, where they can start really glowing. But I got good saturation. Probably could have done a third pumpkin. I did 150 mils, so call it 50 mils per pumpkin, depending on the size of your pumpkin. Okay. The only thing I wish I could do is come through and rotate it every now and then, but this will just have to soak in. Yeah. Okay, so I'll check on this in the morning.